Hey, welcome back, everybody. Once again, I am Matthew. This is Watty's channel. Back down in the game room for another episode of the My Favorite Random Treasures exclusive action figure tournament. This is the fourth video, and I am currently expecting to have roughly 5 videos or so to complete the first round of this tournament. So, as I said back in the first video, this tournament is not going to take long at all to complete. And if I come down here each and every day for a video or two, I'll basically be done with the whole tournament in about 5 days or something, I'm estimating. So I don't think it'll take a long time at all. And I'm kind of noticing something. So at the conclusion of my last video, I was marking off the winners of my contest, and once I pick the names, I pause the video, I write them down, and then I go and I pull the figures. And at the end of the video, I mark off the winners of, those battles. And looking at this, it seems like whoever's name I draw first, they only win one matchup out of every 4. So that is crazy, the way it kind of boils down like that. You would think that would be a lot more balanced, but the right side right now is absolutely killing it. Not a whole lot conversation before the video, not this time, so we'll pretty much just dive straight into the battles and get this video ready for posting when the time comes. Alright, so this hat is getting excessively low now with names. So the first matchup is going to feature the Barbarian as he does battle against Ric Flair. Next battle is going to feature Bad News Brown as he does battle with Abdullah the Butcher. King Haku, he is going to square off against Terry Taylor. This one is going to feature Zeus. Zeus will square off against $1 Million Man. Alright, so we have our 4 matchups, and I will pause and be back in a moment. Alright, everybody, the names have been pulled, the figures have been pulled, and we are all set to begin the next batch of matchups. First matchup, this is actually a really good one. It's going to feature Barbarian as he does battle against Ric Flair. So, per usual, I like to kind of start off with the Galoob 2-ups when I'm starting to talk about these figures. So, with Ric Flair, this is someone... The character himself is probably one of my most hated guys ever. And, obviously, you don't hate the person as in wanting to walk up to him and spit in their face. Of course not. You meet Ric Flair in real life, you want to walk up to him, shake his hand, thank him for what he's meant to the business, for his longevity and his successful career, his historic career. I think he's the most, he's been crowned the champion most times, I think it was like 24 or something. I think it was like 16 times or 20 times in the United States. And then, he travels the world as well. So, multiple time champion in Japan, etc. It's kind of funny that, he was the world's champion. And I saw this in an interview. And he's the world's champion, and he's in Japan, and he's touring, and he's doing his matches, and like nobody there knew who he was. But everybody in Japan knew who Hulk Hogan was. And that... Of course, Hulk Hogan, he was part of New Japan Pro Wrestling as well. And if you actually see some early footage of Hulk Hogan, just, his skill and technique in the match, he's not just a punch, rake across the back, leg drop guy. He actually had some solid moves. And it's kind of a shame that they didn't really allow him to do any of that technical stuff while in the WWF, because I think he would have been so much more. But he's already the most famous name ever, so... But that's a different story. That's for Hulk Hogan. Ric Flair... the Galoob figure, obviously, I would say is probably one of, if not, no, I'm not going to say the most, but one of the most important action figures in my life. Why? Because, of course, we had Ric Flair Galoob as kids. And because of the way that his arms were posed, even though that they were much lower, it was still a very enjoyable, a very playable figure. One of the most one of the most played with Galoob figures ever. As an adult, I still covet the figure for what it was and what it meant to me as a child, but the hands, for some reason, Galoob, even when they moved production to the UK, a lot of their action figures have this type of pose where the legs are kind of separated, one in front of the other, kind of spread out. The character is kind of hunched over, arms spread apart but down low. Ric Flair as an example, Rick Steiner is another one, Jimmy Garvin, Dusty Rhodes, etc. So this is a very common pose for a lot of the Galoob figures. When Random Treasures came out with the Galoob 2-Up of Ric Flair and kind of introduced that they are going to take this line of figures and create LJN style, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And you guys know the story. As soon as I saw that Ric Flair, when is Sid Vicious coming out? Hello. To me, I thought Sid Vicious being like the best Galoob ever should have been like the one that got made first. But at least they got him shortly thereafter. I think he was like number 3 or 4? I know Ric Flair and Sting came 1, 2. So I'm thinking Sid Vicious probably came number 3. But to me, I kind of feel like if you're going to buy figures from Random Treasures, the Galoob 2-Ups, because I think most people our age had these particular types of figures, at least some of them. And I think everyone probably had a Ric Flair at some point in their life. And I think that these are figures that would be, pleasurable both for nostalgia reasons as well as for collectability reasons and display purposes. I do really like the figure. I don't think I'm as obsessed with the Ric Flair Galoob as a lot of other fans or collectors or people who had these figures as childhood. Is it the worst figure ever? Absolutely not. Is it the best? Not even close. And here's the kind of funny story. I always said that Galoob was my second favorite toy line growing up, but that was out of default because all we had was Galoob and Hasbro. Yet my all-time favorite figure was not from Hasbro, it was from Galoob. And you're going to see that Galoob figure later on in this tournament. Is it an important figure for me? Absolutely. Just like the original Galoob display. So there's really nothing wrong with this figure. I think the folks at Random Treasures, they did him right. Got the RF on the trunks, on the boots as well. The color is beautifully aligned. The face, everything looks just like the original figure. So when it comes to the Galoob 2-Ups, you really can't find faults. Because the fault is not with Random Treasures. The fault is with the original manufacturer, who is Galoob. And there are some things that David Galoob and the Galoob family did better when they transitioned from Galoob to original San Francisco toy makers. But they kind of did some things. They kind of stayed with the same poses with a lot of figures, just changed out the color scheme for a lot. So, but that I got to do the original San Francisco review again. Just kind of thinking about Galoob and OSFTM and all that. I might have to bring that up at some point as well. I was going to pass it up, but Ric Flair, is he a champion of this tournament? I don't know, man. I think he's like a second or third round character. I don't know if he's necessarily someone that I see winning the whole tournament. Barbarian, I've always said, was... At one point, I thought that Barbarian was probably the greatest Random Treasures figure ever. So there were a lot of positives about the figure and really little or no negatives that I could mention. The first time I did my countdown, again, I never had an actual Ram Treasures tournament style video or videos. It was always like a countdown video. At the time, I had like 14 figures, and then I had another countdown video where I had 19 figures, and then a countdown video where I had 25 figures. So for the 14 and 19 countdown, Barbarian was always number one. And then by the time I got to 25, I decided to back him up to number two. Or, you know what? I might be remembering incorrectly, because I kind of feel like I think he fell out of the top altogether. I think he was like number 10. So how do you go from number 1 to number 10 just like that? Well, there were a lot of more interesting figures for different reasons why I kind of dropped him so far back. But there is nothing wrong with the Barbarian figure. I mean, an absolutely fantastic look to the head mold. The fighting pose is immaculate. Now, you can look at the new Mr. T action figure from Ram Treasures. That's all it is. This is your Mr. T. So again, they're just doing what other toy companies do. They recycle bodies over and over again. I actually really like that Mr. T figure. He won't be a part of this tournament. He'll be a part of the next one if I ever make another one, because eventually I will buy that figure. The fighting pose is phenomenal. I mean, it says Barbarian and Powers of Pain on the side of the pants. Incredible. Overall look is exceptional. 10 out of 10 for me. The rubber, I think this rubber is actually a little bit harder than what you get from, like, you know, your Axe of Demolish or Smash or like your Bob Backlund, etc. So even though the skin tone might not be pristine, the fact that it's a harder rubber, I like this one a lot even better. So a figure that had to be made, absolutely was crucial, against a fan favorite figure that so many people love. It's a hard decision, but I'm going to choose Barbarian. I have so much history with the Ric Flair because of that Galoob growing up. I always said that I thought Ric Flair was probably a 5 out of 10 figure. Definitely playable because of the ends, but not as playable because his hands were a little bit lower, if that makes sense, you know. Barbarian, as you guys know, Powers of Pain Axe came out in LJN back in Series 5 in 1988. And in 89, when LJN became part of Grand Toys, Barbarian, well, it didn't say Barbarian. It said Powers of Pain on the back of the card. But you knew that a Barbarian was to come out. And so in 2021, 2022, whenever it was, when Ram Treasures released the Barbarian figure, it helped fans finally fulfill the goal of completing their Powers of Pain tag team. Yes, you have plenty of customizers out there. I have a number of Barbarian and Warlord customs myself, both before and after I acquired this figure. But this, to me, again, he's got to be somewhere in the bottom 10, bottom 8, maybe in bottom 6 of this tournament. I think the Barbarian is a phenomenal figure. Next matchup is going to feature Abdullah the Butcher as he does battle with Bad News Brown. So we'll start with the bad news. With figures like Greg Valentine and Barry Windham, Sid Vicious, etc., you know, the characters that are basically all black, either black singlet or black trunks, black boots, etc. It's so plain. So when you're looking at a figure for high quality, you want to see some kind of color scheme that really pops. And with Bad News Brown being a dark man, obviously, if he had, like, I don't know, yellow or white trunks or some kind of like tie-dye or something, you know, it would help this figure pop a little bit more. I actually watched a lot of shoot videos with Bad News Brown over the last year or so, and some of my absolute favorite videos. I think listening to guys like Bad News Brown and Greg Valentine are probably my favorite, you know, shoot videos to listen in on. This man had just so much knowledge, and I'm like, this guy he's basically me. Let me come in, let me do my job, let me earn that paycheck so I can take care of my family. Let me go home and enjoy my time off. So he and I would have gotten along really well together. The one thing I don't like about the figure and it's an obvious one. One of the reasons I don't covet the British Bulldogs is because that whole one arm up, it kind of ruins the figure. The way that this arm is out to the side here, if you like lowered his arm just a bit, like if this was his pose, that right there would have made this a 5 out of 10 to a 9, even possible 10 out of 10 figure. Yeah, color scheming, all that great. It don't matter. I could still give it a 10 out of 10, even with one fluid color throughout. His head mold. That's bad news to me. He also kind of looks like one of those guys I was in Afghanistan with. And so that was really interesting when I picked up this figure as well. But with the left arm out, I mean, it's still a fun figure, I think. You guys know I don't wrestle these guys. But there was one time I got my Zeus figure in. And I spent like 5 minutes kind of like doing a little cheap wrestling match with like Zeus and Sid Vicious and Bad News Brown and whatnot, and I was just goofing off, having some fun with it, and you know, he was playable. Not exactly a go-to figure, I wouldn't imagine, but here is another character right there with Smash, right there with the Bushwhackers, with Brother Love, with the Barbarian of figures or characters who were supposed to be made for LJN but never were. So, something else I think Ram Treasures did really well, not just with the Galoob 2-ups, but by adding the original Series 6 figures, the unreleased figures, you know, getting those to market was incredible for fans. Abdullah the Butcher, to me, is one of the most unique characters you'll ever come across. So, I already had a King Kong Bundy custom of Abdullah the Butcher, and the way that they painted the King Kong Bundy body and made him bare skin, put the red pants in. If I was a smart man, I would have done things differently. I wouldn't have given him red and black. Why? Because I already have that same figure from a previous custom that I purchased from Wrestling Writer. If I had done it differently, I would have asked for white pants with the red line down the side. Because it's more Abdullah the Butcher, I guess, and you don't really have that like King Kong Bundy face staring back at you. I think this one's a little bit better, but you know, at least in the other custom with the little cuts on his forehead and everything, and with the championship belt, it just fits beautifully. The way that Ram Treasures kind of put like these elf shoes on, the heftiness of his body. I mean, this man had to be 450, 460, more than that even. He was a big fella. You can't really hold the figure in these stands, as you can see, because you gotta kind of hold it around the head. Such a big guy. I had given this guy a 10 out of 10. But when you actually look at the arm, the way that the right arm is in so close, I don't like that. That kind of hurts the figure, in my opinion. Still 9.5 out of 10. So by no stretch of the imagination would I say it hurts the figure to an extent where I would call it a bad figure. It's still a great one. One of Ram Treasure's best, absolutely. And you know, Abdullah Butcher comes in with like these little small hooks and everything. I think Ram Treasure spends a lot of time kind of focusing on like Hulk Hogan doing a bear hug pose type of thing, you know, things like that. Or Ivan Putski, the way that his hands pose. Wrestling figures. We want wrestling figures. This is still very playable. Still a usable figure. Fantastic look. Glossiness. Incredible. The one thing I don't really see on here, but I know he has it. This is probably because of the light is kind of shining on it. But that little cuts on his head. So as you know, that Abdullah Butcher had hepatitis, and he would be famous for like taking a fork or a little knife or blade or something and kind of slicing his head before his matches. And then, you know, in his matchups, he'd pull out that tool and he would stab his opponent. And we're not talking, you know, fake blood or anything. He would seriously cut them and then thus risking spreading that disease, right? Or, he had infamous matches with like Carlos Colon. He had infamous matches with Bruiser Brody. And he'd dig into his pants and he'd pull out that fork and, start jabbing his opponents. Abdullah Butcher is also, unless something's changed, to my knowledge, Abdullah Butcher is still the only character who is in the WWF or WWE Hall of Fame without ever appearing in WWF. Was he ever in WCW? I don't think so. He may have strictly been an NWA character or AWA character. I don't know. Puerto Rico, of course. I'm sure he wrestled in Japan as well. Obviously, AWA. He's one of the more famous names from AWA. So, I don't know, man. Abdullah Butcher. To me, I think it has to go to Abdullah. Bad News Brown is not as bad as I first thought. When I first got him, I kind of been more shuffling him up and down my lineup as far as who I covet the most. I think he does more movement than any other figure, but Abdullah the Butcher to me is a clear-cut choice. Next battle. Alright, next battle is going to feature, if I can keep this on there, King Haku as he does battle with Terry Taylor's Red Rooster. So once again, we will start with Haku. You guys already know that the original Haku is one of my least favorite action figures. Because of the value of the figure, when I first started buying all my Series 6 figures, I was buying them from Random Treasures. And then later on in life, of course, I acquired the originals. And now the original Series 6 line, is just back in the baggies. I also bought King Haku because of, a couple reasons. The accessory obviously being one. And two, the King Haku pants color scheme compared to the Islander pant color scheme. But this figure has gone through the ringer. I mean, for a figure that just simply sits on your shelf and doesn't move, to have the massive amount of paint loss that it does, and I don't know, I guess because of the way that it's constantly chipping all over, like the entire figure's, I mean, everywhere you look, there's discrepancies, and is that really what's cutting into it? What's gonna determine my decision with this matchup? No. If you have been watching me, you know that Haku in general is not a beloved figure. Haku later on has tag team partner with Andre, or who was he? He wasn't one of the head shrinkers. But I think they're all from the same family, if I'm not mistaken. And King Haku and the Head Shrinkers, Samu and Fatu. But he played a similar character like that, because I kind of remember with like excessively long hair and kind of like wearing like head shrinker garments and whatnot. But off the top of my head, I can't think of it. It's driving me nuts. Red Rooster though was Terry Taylor, or the Red Rooster character. I kind of remember him being in WWF in the 90s. Was he still part of WWF as the Red Rooster in 88, 89 time frame? Because I don't remember. I mean, I definitely remember Red Rooster, so that's why I'm thinking 90s. But even if this is not era appropriate, meaning, sometime between 1980 and 1989, that's fine. I mean, he's still a fun character. I like the rooster design on the top of the head. And, RR for Red Rooster. Kind of a fun gimmick, because I don't think that he understood his gimmick very well. And a lot of the discussion that people talk about, or that he's mentioned in his videos, is that he thought that as the Red Rooster, his gimmick, that he had to kind of act like a rooster or whatnot. And so he'd go and start squawking around the ring and stuff. I'm like, crazy. Was he a mega superstar? I don't really think of Terry Taylor as being a mega superstar. But then again, I never thought of Texas Tornado being a mega superstar, right? But Kerry Von Erich and the Von Erich family in general were all legends. So it's like, Intercontinental champion and just all over the place. I kind of been taking credit for this particular figure, and I kind of say it jokingly, but I don't know if it's true or not. One of the things I mentioned is when I saw that the Ivan Putski action figure, and I gave him a 2 out of 10, and they asked me, hey, what kind of figure would I be looking for? I gave them a list of figures I was interested in, and one of them was the Greg Valentine, hand up pose. So they took a Greg Valentine figure, mirrored it so that his right hand is up, and made an awesome figure. Of course, Greg Valentine stands straight up, where this one still has the legs kind of separated, one foot in front of the other. Still, I want to take credit for it, thinking that this figure was my idea, or the design was my idea. For all I know, this figure could have been in production for months. Quality looking figure overall. The rubber, again, when you look at the face, the way that the rubber is, it kind of really makes the characters look really cartoony. And I hate that. LJN doesn't really make its characters look like cartoons. They still look like real life people based on 1980s technology. And would I covet these more if they were like 3D printed faces or anything? I don't think so. I still want the same kind of design that I have on the original LJNs, and this to me, it's like 1970s design for a 1980s figure instead of being a 2020s design for a 1980s figure. I don't know if that makes sense. I kind of confused myself on that one. But guys, I mean, that's not like a huge drawn out, who am I going to choose? Oh my god, I can't decide. No, this was an easy one. Red Rooster over Haku every day. Come on. Haku, not even Ram Treasures Haku, just the general Haku is just a really bad figure, and I could not have imagined playing with that as a kid. The way that the arm is straight up, if you don't like the El Gigante Galoob figure, why would Haku be a good figure for play? It's just out there. Alright. A couple of my favorite figures from Ram Treasures will square off. And it sucks because you're going to lose an awesome one right off the bat. And it's going to feature Zeus as he does battle against the $1 Million Man. So, I've said that there were certain figures that I bought from Ram Treasures that were not going to be included in this tournament. I.e., any of the original color design for Series 6 figures weren't included. Your white shirt referee was not going to be included. Your Sergeant Slaughter Hasbro mail away wasn't going to be included. Bam Bam Bigelow, the Blue Trunk Series 2, short-haired Andre was not going to be included. But there's certain characters like the Pink Shirt referee. Pink Shirt was not a design of LJN. It was Pink Shirt was a design of Ram Treasures. The original Series 5, was it Series 4 or Series 5? I think it was Series 5 of $1 Million Man was a black suit from LJN. And obviously I consider the green suit $1 Million Man from Ram Treasures to be its own unique figure. From Hasbro, we never had the black suit Series 1 $1 Million Man, but we did have the blue, or the green suit from Series 2 as kids. So the green suit Hasbro $1 Million Man was always my favorite $1 Million Man figure, and one I really coveted. And so when I saw this on Ram Treasures page, I picked that up immediately. So this was probably within weeks before I deployed back in December of 2021. So I think Sergeant Slaughter was the very first figure I ever bought from Ram Treasures. And then I saw this, I picked this one up. And I never opened it because I had already left on deployment and I wasn't home when this arrived. So I didn't get this until like months later. But I also kind of think I shot myself in the foot at that point because I didn't have a regular LJN $1 Million Man. So I think I may have been confused. And when I saw this on Ram Treasures, I picked it up thinking it was part of the LJN line. And not really realizing it was black suit compared to their green suit. It doesn't matter. I think maybe eventually I would have picked this one up anyways. Ted DiBiase has always been one of my absolute favorite bad guys, and because he's like, like a sometimes manager or whatnot, especially later on, like late '92, whatever, when he had to start teaming up with Erwin Arsheister in order to defend the title belts and whatnot, because injuries just kind of derailed his career, and they needed IRS to kind of, be the backbone to take on the brunt of the force of the tag team matches and whatnot. And then he was finally out of wrestling altogether and just simply a manager and creating the $1 Million Corporation, etc. The guys that he picked up, I kind of feel like were always like your B group characters. So where Bobby Heenan had Andre the Giant and Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy and Rick Rude, $1 Million Man had guys like 1-2-3 Kid or Kama, or the early going of Steve Austin, Fake Undertaker, guys like that, right? So I always loved this figure, and every time I had done a Random Treasures countdown video, this figure always ranked so high on my list. Like, 7 out of 15, or 9 out of 19, or something like that. And then when I did my last video where I did the ranking system, I had 25 figures, 25 exclusive figures, and I think he fell to like number 20. Now, why would he go from so high on my list to so low on my list? And I think eventually, kind of coupled with the incorporation of new great figures that bumped him further and further down, was also the fact that I started really paying attention to the face. Now, I never was really bothered by the face before, but then as I started doing the videos more and more often, and I started looking at the rubber, and I'm like, it just looks so gaudy, so cheap, and I'm like, no, I just can't comprehend keeping the $1 Million Man so high on my list when I just feel like the rubber is just so cheap and so poorly made. And you're going to charge someone $140, $130 for this? It's just insane. Am I glad I picked it up? It's a $1 Million Man figure. It's a different incorporation of the $1 Million design and color scheme. So, of course, I appreciate it. And would I change anything? Probably not. I still like the figure one way or the other. I still feel like the $1 Million Man is one of the best, or at least one of the better figures from Ram Treasures. So, I'm not going to hate on it too much. This matchup, he does square off against Tiny Lister's Zeus. So, Zeus, as we know, is the major heel from No Holds Barred back in 1989. And Tiny Lister, to even promote the movie, he kept like appearing in like all these matches, Survivor Series, etc. Kind of doing battle with Hogan and whatnot. And a man of his size could have been a legitimate, wrestler. If he decided to go into wrestling and abandon being an actor. I mean, he was a fun actor. You see in movies like Friday, for example. But he would have made an awesome wrestler, I think. This figure, I talked about the Rip Thomas figure I got from Ram Treasures. I got that in, and then I think like 2 days later or a day later, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, I don't remember. But the Zeus figure populated on Ram Treasures' website. And I thought this was an absolute killer figure. This was perfect in about every way, shape, and form. Now later on, as I keep getting these Galoob 2-ups, you look at Arn Anderson and then you look at this figure and like, okay, that's just an Arn Anderson figure. So now this figure that was a 20 out of 10, not a 10 out of 10, but 20 out of 10, perfect, loved it every way, has now dropped because of it just ripping off another figure. You know what? I don't care. It's still a 10 out of 10 for me. When I talk about like real exclusive figures for Ram Treasures, yeah, because Galoob 2-up is rubber LJN style, that is considered exclusive, but they're still based on LJN, or they're still based on Galoob design, right? So this right here is an original idea. So this is like a true exclusive. And I've been always thinking that this would go down as your #1 figure, because Zeus was a fun character from my all-time favorite wrestling movie. He has a fantastic look. I absolutely love the glossiness of the figure. I mean, it just absolutely, glistens and shines. It's beautiful. You throw this beautiful silver championship belt on it to match up with the pants and the chain accessory. Even the head, man. They even got the Z in there for Zeus beautifully. Overall design, color scheme, accessories. An absolute perfect figure. And if Ram Treasures had more figures that look like this, I think they could double, even triple their orders. You got to realize that you say, okay, let's say they sold 10 figures. Just throw out a number. Tripling it to 30 figures, even at $100 a piece after, Etsy takes out their seller's fees. 30 figures, $100, that's $3,000. That's not really a lot of money. You also got to realize that this is a niche market. I myself, I know I'm not going to end up with millions and millions of subscribers, because it's a niche. There's specific people who are looking for the type of videos that I make, right? Just like there's a niche for a type of toys or collectibles, action figures, things like that people are looking for. And so they're not going to sell as much as they think they would. But they could definitely, improve. We're talking 40, 50, 60 sales for each figure within the first month or so that they have the figures listed, if they're able to create more improved figures like these. Or drop their prices. I mean, dropping the prices will always help significantly. I don't want to lose Ted DiBiase this early in the tournament, but I just don't see a way possible to eliminate Zeus this early. And like I said, there are very few figures in this tournament that I think that have the capabilities of eliminating Zeus. Does he make it to the finals or semifinals? It's possible, but he could be eliminated next round. You just never know in a blind drawing like this. Alright, so that is the end of the 4 matchups for this video. Hopefully you guys are getting a kick out of this tournament so far. And if you guys, matchup by matchup, as you watch these videos, if you have any ideas, or like if you have like certain choices that you would have made that different from my own, let me know what you think. I mean, I'm glad to hear from you, and why you would make those choices or whatever. Yeah. For the next couple weeks, I think this is gonna be a fun daily upload with these tournament videos. So, if you know anybody that's looking for this type of content or whatnot, please. I don't normally advertise for myself, but I feel like sometimes I might have to, especially with these type of videos, which I really enjoy, and I think other people would enjoy them. So I really want these type of videos to get as popular as possible. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I will talk to you then, and see you in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.